Need a website for your business, but not looking to break the bank for one? I've got you covered. Hi, it's me, Ashley M. Lyle, founder and CEO of BLAQN and host of the Black Queens on Stage podcast. And yes, I also have a website business, Sites by Lyle. I can create a dynamic website for your business that will showcase your work, wow potential clients, and close more sales. So contact me on my Instagram at Sites by Lyle to schedule your free 30-minute evaluation so we can get you started on your new website. Welcome to the Black Queens on Stage podcast, presented by Black Literature and Art Queens Network, where we bring our queens to the stage. Welcome to the podcast where we honor and acknowledge Black women performers and discuss racial issues within Michigan performing venues. I'm Ashley M. Lyle, and today I am joined by the beautifully and immensely talented mezzo-soprano opera singer, Calebria Webb. Hi, Calebria. How are you?
Hi. I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm great. It only took me 3 tries just to get your name right.
And it's okay. And I tell people all the time, feel comfortable with asking. It's better to ask and then receive redirection than to just go about looking a fool being wrong the whole time, right? So It's cool. It's cool.
Cool. Okay. I feel much better now because now I don't feel like a dumbass.
No problem. It's okay. I get that so much that I'm incredibly patient with that. And I'm sure my mom had to think about that, as she was naming me. So, it just kind of comes with the territory.
And your name, it really, to me, it feels like it really fits your artistic profession. It sounds like it sounds like it's an Italian name. Am I right?
So here's the funny story. You're right. You're right. Okay. So my mom thought that I was going to be a boy and she was going to name me Caleb. Now, I'm not sure if the Doppler was wrong or if that was just a hunch or if she just, okay, this is what we're going to roll with because this is what I think it is. And so I came out a girl, and my grandma is the queen of coming up with names in the family. So they sat there and they figured out, I guess she'll be a Calebria. And so I guess a couple years into my mom's employment at the time, she ran into a coworker who said, my family is from the region of Calabria, Italy. And so she was like, oh, wow, that's the thing. I had no clue. And so it's spelled slightly different. The A is in place of the E. But every time I meet Italian people who have like a derivative last name from that region or they are from that region, they always tell me that. And it's always fun, like to be heard on a roster, an Italian reading a roster. And then they get to my name and they're expecting this Italian princess to show up. And I'm just Black. And I'm like, here. And then, they kind of look at me kind of funny. And I'm like, I'm Calebria. It's okay. My mom didn't know it was a region, but it's interesting. I Googled it one day and Calebria actually came up, I think at least 10 years ago in middle school, it came up as a ceiling fan. So I'm like, that's cool. But other than that, you'll rarely hear it. It's just my name,
Right. Well, I'm pretty impressed with myself. That was pretty dead on the nose.
That was good. Perfect.
So let's get into this interview. So why don't you describe to me your style of opera?
All right. So I'm a mezzo-soprano. I would be considered what we call a light lyric. So in our world, we have what's called a Fox system. And a lot of people really, really like it, or a lot of people really, really hate it. It's one of those things where it can go either way. I kind of like it, even though I think sometimes it does have its limitations, but the system just really explicitly describes what your voice is and like what you're great at singing at. And so a light lyric style means that I'm pretty solid at sustaining some longer notes. I have somewhat of a warm color to my tone. I can move. I'm a little agile. I can do some of the leaps and the runs and things like that. But I kind of just am more at home in that consistent, warm, richer tone. And so a lot of the classical music that I sing floats around that arena. Um, for me, when I was a little younger, my voice was just um, a little bit younger because our voice continues to age as we grow older. There were more opportunities for me to play young boys in opera, which was always fun. Putting on makeup and trying to draw a 5 o'clock shadow. That's a good time. Or maybe like young, kind of like maidish, young damsel-ish type of roles, because light lyrics play those roles really well. Their voices are suited for that. As I get older, I'm sort of being pushed more into um, witch roles. Eventually, one day, maybe when I'm older, much older than I am, it may be more of a mother. Sort of, if you get lucky as a mezzo, as a leading lady, perhaps that as well. So really my style kind of fits into all of those, but then I always have to take it and put like an urban switch on it. So I'm from Detroit. I am born and raised here. I spent some time in North Carolina. I went to undergrad at Winston-Salem State University, and then I lived in Charlotte for 3 years after that. And then I came back to Detroit. But Detroit roots are so deep within me, and I love urban culture. I love everything about the hair, the nails, the colors, the lingo, the outfits, everything, everything. And so there's always a 6 Mile and Greenfield attitude when I play a role, right? Because that's where I'm from. There's always a flair. And so it doesn't matter if it's in Italian. It doesn't matter if the role is in French. If we're lucky, English, any role, German, any language, any role. There is a unique West Side Detroit girl flavor there, which I think is very cool and is very indicative of who I am. So I enjoy the classical repertoire so much, but I also am a huge fan of like Beyonce, and I'm a huge fan of Cardi B and all of these popular artists. And I look at them, and of course, when you're young, you're a millennial, you see all these elements of pop culture and some of the things you emulate. And so it comes out on stage, which is the best part. So an urban classical singer, that's like my flair, that's my touch point. Still maintaining beautiful singing, still maintaining quality and technique, but just adding in a little fun because it should be fun.
Mm-hmm. I like that answer. Oh, yeah. So who or what inspired you to pursue a career in opera?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to condense this answer as much as I can. This is kind of a complex answer. Okay. So I knew when I was a kid that I wanted to sing. I was in kindergarten, and back then we had like show and tell, and some may remember, maybe I'm dating myself here, but we had these little tape recorders. I had a Fisher-Price brand one. It had a little microphone attached to it.
Girl,
and I think I wore that thing out.
The one with the little the red face where the cassette used to go in. Girl, I had one.
Yep.
Too. I had that for years until a mouse infiltrated our house and ate the cord.
Oh,
I was so heartbroken.
No, that's terrible. And RIP to that. RIP. I mean, it was, when I tell you, I wore that thing out. And I do remember that sort of being a popular toy, because when I would go over to like my cousin's house or something like that, I would see that thing like every so often. But, every show and tell, I brought that thing in like it was new. It didn't matter that we just had show and tell last week, because I was going to bring the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so I started singing. And some of my first songs were Laugh at Me, Anita Baker, Body and Soul, okay? And Whitney Houston, like I Have Nothing, because at that point the Bodyguard was kind of big and the songs were really popular. And so my kindergarten teacher tells my mom, "Did you know that she can sing?" And my mom was like, I had an idea, but I really didn't know. And so she started paying a little more attention to me. And I would do a lot of singing in my room by myself. And I kind of was never really a shy kid either. So, people would ask me to sing and I'm like, okay, whatever. And so we fast forward, and I kept that, I kept that. I always liked to sing. We get to high school. I went to Renaissance, and my freshman year, they have you select your electives. And I didn't know anything about any of that. I came from a very small parochial school before that. So I was like, oh, okay. I knew I was going to be on the pom-pom team. You couldn't tell me that I won't be out here in this little skirt, doing a little 1-2 step, being cute, little lip gloss on. You couldn't tell me that that wasn't me, right? And so I go to pick these electives and I see that they had like ladies vocal / beginning choir. And I'm like, oh, I've always liked to sing. Let me just check that off. I'm sure that'll be cute. And so, I get into class my first year. I don't know how to read any music. I'm just like a raw talent. And, they figure out that I can sing. And I'm like, oh, this is cute. We learn a lot here. I enjoyed the course, but, it was just a beginning level course. And we did our first concert. That must have been around the winter, almost before the winter break, when they called it like Christmas break back then. Mm-hmm. And I saw the main group, the Renaissance Varsity Chorus in concert, and I was blown away. And at that point, I said, I got to do that. I have to be a part of that. And so that was the best decision probably I've made my entire life. Joining that, I have lifelong friends, I have lifelong experiences, and the music was just so rich. We sang from sheet music. I had to learn to read music really fast. We sang a lot of the standard European rap, but then we did a lot of standard American rap, which included a lot of spirituals. And mm-hmm. I just really enjoyed the experience overall. And I didn't know at the time that you could go to college and be a music major. I had no idea people went to school for that. And so when that was introduced to us through college tours, I said, oh, wow. Because at first I was like, I don't want to go to no more school. That doesn't sound fun to me. I could just go to New York and sing and wait some tables and call it a day. And then I figured out, wow, people can go to school for this. I can just sing and get grades, because I was so disenfranchised with the math and like the social studies and all the other things like that. I'm like, that's boring. So I figured that out and I said, okay, this is what I want to do. I auditioned my senior year on tour at Winston-Salem State University and other colleges as well. And I got a scholarship for singing. And I said, this is great. Not a full ride. It was 50%. It was 50%. And of course it was out of state tuition. So it was a significant, reduction of the bill. And at the time I was like, I got to get out of Michigan. I'm sick of the winter. Give me somewhere with some sun. I'm over it. And I said, let's just have at it. And I get there and I have a weekly voice lesson, one-on-one with an instructor. Most of my classes were music-based classes, whether it was theory or sight singing, which is just basically, learning to read music, just looking at it, eyeballing it. Mm-hmm. I just had so many wonderful musical opportunities. And at that point, I'm like, I do like singing and I love Beyonce. I'm just going to be Beyonce when I graduate from here, right? So, because I'm obsessed with this woman. This is nothing new. All my high school friends, they'll listen to this and say, we knew. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to be Beyonce. It's fine. I graduate. I'm teaching music in a public school. And I'm like, okay, and then eventually I'm like, I miss being a music student. I apply to go back to grad school at Wayne State. I get accepted to Wayne State. This time it is a full ride for my master's.
Nice.
And I get there and my current voice instructor, who I still study with and who has been so instrumental to my growth in classical music, turned me on even more to classical music. I knew that I liked it before. I didn't know that I would be so obsessed. She really unlocked what my voice could do. We took a class called Opera Workshop, and that basically is a semester course of preparing an opera. You learn a role, and then at the end of the semester, you perform it, and there's an audience, and I ate it up. I ate it up. That hands down has been one of my most favorite classes over the course of a lifetime, next to private one-on-one vocal study, which is a class as well. You get regular grades for it. And it just really turned me on. And I really dug deep into it. It was a way for me to be expressive. It was a way for me to be different because I'm Black singing classical music. It was a way for me to find my tribe. There are other people, both, Black and non-Black, who are doing it that, these are relationships that I have and I treasure. It has taken me around the world, literally. And it has just been one of the most, I guess, it's such a hard adventure. I'm getting teared up just thinking about it, but it's such a hard career. But there is nothing more rewarding because it literally feeds your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
it's addictive. It's kind of like you get tired of fighting an uphill battle in society about the arts. And you do get tired of having to work a million jobs, just to make it. And the cost of living are just exorbitant and they continue to rise.
Yeah.
But it just feels so good being able to talk about the art or to perform the art or to be recognized as a leader in the art, as an expert in the art. It is just so fulfilling. And it's what keeps me hooked. It really keeps me hooked. And I've realized, like, I have to have some music every day. I have to sing something. I have to look at a score. I have to translate something. I have to teach a student, what I've learned. It doesn't matter. It just hooks you in. And, I'm grateful for that because it's beyond a career. It's a life passion.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people go a long time figuring out a life passion. And, here I am 15 years old and I'm like, oh, this is it. And I've been consistent,
Mm-hmm.
so that's my story. It's a little long-winded, but it's such a funny story sometimes because I really thought I was going to be Beyonce, and now I'm like, I love B and I love everything that woman does. She can't do anything wrong, but it's even more incredible for me to be Calebria, right? At this point.
Right. Exactly. I was actually about to interject with that too when you said I wanted to be Beyonce. But I was going to say, well, now you can be a Calebria.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So during shows that you have, like recitals and things like that, what does your audience look like? Do you tend to have more men, more women, black or white?
It's such a mix. I would say before Miss Rona came and just stole the show, and we were still able, to have regular like performances. Some of my most memorable recent performances would be with Opera Moda, which is a local opera company, and they specialize in the eclectic, and they do these works and they reimagine them, and they're so awesome and fun. That crowd could look like anything. There were a lot of family and friends that I knew. These people could be black, they might not be black. They could be younger. They could be a little older. Sometimes it was some of my mom's friends. She would get on the phone and kind of tell them about what was going on. And then I would see them there. And that may have been their first experience with opera, or it may have been their first experience in a while with opera. Mm-hmm. There were people from jobs, that I had, my day jobs, that were coming to support. And, that looks like anything. So it really is a mix. If you have a tribe of people that support your endeavors, and for me, that looks like everybody, then your audience is whoever, shows up. So it is cool. I will say, being from the hood and telling people, from the hood what I do, they kind of look at me kind of crazy. And there's this automatic disinterest without trying the art form. And that's just because I think for such a long time, it was so exclusive. And especially as people of color, we haven't really been on the inside of that exclusive part, in a lot of history, most of history. And so, it becomes something that they do instead of something that we do. And we actually do it really well. So, sometimes I tell people that I know would never be interested in it, and they're supportive. You know what I'm saying? You should really come see this. If you didn't think you were interested before, just give this a try. Right. This may be something that changes your mind. And so every now and then I would see people like that come, and that was really cool. And they would say, this may not be something that I could keep up, but I did enjoy myself. And that's it.
When I was speaking on that, when you were talking about different people not fully engaging in it because it's opera and because they just don't have that connection. When you're performing, how do you keep your audience engaged? Do you ever notice that there's like an energy shift between whoever is in your audience?
So I have never noticed an energy shift. I think that the common link between performer and audience, and even collaborative pianist or instrumentalist, whoever you decide to collaborate with musically, the tying link is emotion. We all have emotion. We know what it's like, most of us, to be heartbroken. We know what it's like to have loss, grief. We know what joy is. We know what happiness is. We know what is an instant gratification is. And so when you really dig deep into what you're singing and you really find those undertones, some of them are very obvious, some of them are not so obvious. But when you really go and dig deep and you find that relationship for yourself, you can better communicate that relationship and you pull people in with you. And so you may not understand a word I'm singing in French, right? I have probably provided translations for you to kind of understand what you're hearing, but you get the overall nuance of what I'm singing about. You understand the emotion because we also are singing actors. Mm-hmm. And so our job is to convey that as clearly, as concise as possible. That's our job. And so I don't think that there's an energy shift when you as an artist have done the work.
Mm-hmm. I like that answer. And that's actually something that I'm going to ask you about in regards to, like, you don't know what I'm saying, but you'll get the message.
Right.
Now, what techniques did you learn early in your career to get you where you are today?
Ooh, let's see. Well, you have to be good, first of all. So, and that's with anything, right? So we can all have a skill somewhere, but are you good? And then there's the divider. Are you of excellence? You know what I'm saying? Because you see a lot of good out here, but what separates you from Joe Blow doing whatever and then going to the next level? So you have to learn to be a student your whole life. That involves research, reading, asking questions, using context. You're never done being a student. That involves continuing some sort of study with another professional who can help you. That could be a coach. That could be an instructor. It usually is a team of people, but you're always a student. You learn that very early. You're never done. Even though you have graduated and you have received your degree, you're always a student. You're still a student. And I think that's relevant in life as well, but it just doesn't stop. You also have to learn to be personable. So in a lot of settings, you're not working by yourself. There are times that you are working by yourself, and I hope you can deal with yourself. But, there are times where you're dealing with small group, and then there are times where you're dealing with a cast. And so you have to be personable. You don't want to be the guy that comes in late all the time because you're throwing the vibe of the whole show off at that point, like the camaraderie struggles. You don't want to be the person that comes in that doesn't know their part because that's a drag. First of all, nobody should be having to plunk your part out, right? But then it slows the energy of the cast down because now I'm nervous if you're going to know your part by opening night, and that's making me nervous because if you miss an entrance, I'm liable to miss mine, by accident, by your accident. So you learn to be personable and you learn to be a good colleague. You learn to be very, very humble as well. There will be tons of opportunities that are out there and you may not be selected for maybe but 1% of them, but your peers may be selected for them. And it is just so critical for you to be celebratory of that. We all have to celebrate each other. When one of us comes up, the rest of us come up. And you have to know that, and you have to be comfortable and know that your time and your skills and your gifts are yours. Nobody's going to take that away from you. So there's a lot of life lessons there. And then there's a lot of vocal lessons wow, I know if I hang out at the bar the night before an audition, this audition isn't going to go too well, right? So let me take my butt home and get into bed. Let me make sure that I memorize my music. Let me make sure that I've rehearsed what I need to rehearse. I need to make sure that I'm in good health. I can't go out here and fool around and especially with this Rona situation, I can't run out here and just do whatever it is that I want to do because if I contract this virus, there is a likelihood, whether it's high or low, that this may impact how my lungs work, and impact my singing as a result. So I can't go out here. I can't risk, going to the club with no mask on. I can't do that because my life and livelihood depends on me being able to phonate. I can't sit around and puff cigarettes because I know that that's tearing my larynx up and my risk of, throat cancer or any type of head and neck cancer goes up. So I'm always thinking ahead wow, my diet probably needs to look like this to prepare. Wow, I probably don't need to go out and have that extra margarita this week, do I? Let me see if I can reschedule. Or there's a lot of mindset shifts and behavioral shifts that you have to have in addition to being a student, in addition to being a good colleague, in addition to being personable. So it takes a lot. It's really a lifestyle, An engineer can wake up and go do a job. And this is no shade to them, but they can wake up and go do a job, do a couple math problems, whatever it is that they do at the desk. And then they go home, kick their feet up. They might go to the gym, have a beer. Wash, rinse, and repeat. They do that 5 days a week or however many days a week. It just doesn't work like that for an artist. you're
Right.
on all the time. So you have to carry like that.
And that kind of goes back to what you and I were talking about before we started recording, when you were asking if I was going to ask you to sing. No, I'm not going to ask you to sing. That's
Praise God.
Right. For me as this podcast host who is asking you to commit your whatever time that you have to me to talk to me for an hour, for me to ask you to sing, I feel that's a level of disrespect that I don't want to do to somebody, especially to do that to them on the spot without any preparation. Because yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm an artist myself. I sing as well, so I fully understand it. I would never do that.
Artists get artists.
Mhm.
Artists understand artists. We understand that high that I spoke of, and we understand the low, and we understand the day-to-day requirements. Artists just get artists. It's a beautiful thing, and we don't have to say words to understand each other. We, a lot of times it's just a look, and it's like, all right, we got it. Of course, sometimes we ask things for clarity, but most of the time, artists just get artists, which is why I love hanging out with artists of all, disciplines.
I'm gonna switch gears a little bit to a question that I always ask my guests because it's relevant and it needs to be discussed. And as a Black woman in a white male and female dominated industry, what kind of obstacles and challenges have you faced because you're Black and a woman, and how did you overcome them?
Ooh, now this is a deep one. Okay. I'm gonna try not to get on my pedestal for too long. All right. I think about this so much. I would say that people may think that this is more of an indirect, but to me, this is totally direct. The financial aspect is such a challenge. This career takes so much money to stay afloat. It is obviously money for the education. And as I said, you're always a student. There is a cost associated with having a voice instructor to refine and improve your technique. There is a cost associated to have a coach who specializes in, certain styles or certain languages. At the bridge level, I would say, of career, we have, summer programs or other programs, young artist programs that sometimes require tuition. And the tuition can really range, but some of these programs are several $1,000s. It takes a lot of money to maintain this career. And a lot of times as a Black person, being someone who was not born into wealth whatsoever, I come from, a working middle class family, I would say. I'm the product of a single mother who had to do it herself all the time. And, I don't have, the stories of not having food or not having clothes, thank God. But there were a lot of things that I just couldn't do because I just did not have the money. There are a lot of our non-Black counterparts whose families are wealthier. There are so many people that graduate from a program and they don't have to work a job because family says, you just focus on being a singer. We'll pay for your lessons. We'll pay for your audition fees. We'll pay for your travel. You just be a singer all day. And so this person is dedicating literally sun up to sundown on the craft, sun up to sundown on their voice, sun up to sundown on research of what to audition for next. While little old me and everybody else that looks like me, we got to go get a job because we need health insurance or we have a bill that we have to pay. We're not trust fund babies. And that is very common. And that is why I think around my age level and up, you start to see a lot of Black men and women quit because you are so exhausted at that point. You're tired of having to work multiple jobs just to have food. The cost of living, as I've said before, is just continuing to rise. Perhaps you have some sort of pre-existing medical condition where you need some different health insurance. And the only way you're going to get that at a reasonable rate is if you have a job that provides benefits. So your values start to shift. Perhaps you want to start a family or get married, but you can't always have that nomad lifestyle if you have other people to support besides yourself. And so our pool of people, Black people in this career, it already starts small. Okay. But then it gets smaller as you get up there. And it is totally because of the lack of generational wealth. And that's not our fault. The system was set up for us to just now basically start our journeys. Like I'm doing things now so that if in the future I do decide to have a family, if my kids decide to become whatever it is that they decide to become, I can throw the money at them, make it rain, and support them and say, you focus on this. Everything else is just background noise. We got you here, because that happens, you know, and I don't want my kids to be chained up by student loan debt or credit card debt or any of these, you know, crazy systems that we have. And a lot of times we are left to fend for ourselves with, you know, we have a lot of emotional support probably at home, but we don't have financial support at all. So to me, that is like the biggest one. Another thing that I've noticed, and it starts from childhood, they seem to be trying to shift this model now, which I'm grateful for, but we're still light years behind. I was not exposed to classical music until high school. Mm-hmm. And again, my mother has a master's degree, you know. She's a first generation college student. My grandparents, you know, they're a bit older, but my grandmother was a homemaker. She was forced to be a homemaker to take care of the family. And my grandfather is retired from Chrysler. And, you know, they were working people, but they weren't wealthy people, but they knew how to make their dollars stretch. And so, you know, my mom, therefore, is what their dreams are, you know, and then I go a little further than them, but I wasn't exposed to classical music until high school. Mm-hmm. And it's because my mother probably wasn't exposed until I got exposed. And my grandparents, you know, they only have a high school diploma. So they probably weren't exposed, especially my grandmother, who's from the Jim Crow South, who had to flee the South because of Jim Crow, you know. So those opportunities were not afforded to people of color for such a long time that, again, it turned into this exclusive community that a lot of us weren't a part of. There were some of us for sure, you know, we existed through history, but, you know, in comparison, there's so few of us than there are white people. And because of our late exposure and lack of exposure, we start so late. Our first voice lessons are in undergrad. There are so many kids out here who start taking voice lessons with professionals, you know, when they're in high school, 15, 16 years old, and they're studying with somebody at the university. They're getting their audition materials for college ready. You know, I didn't have any of that. So I was playing catch up for such a long time, and it makes you have to work twice as hard. And that is just a system. We don't have those opportunities exist, but if they're never in our neighborhoods and they're never accessible, or they're so far out of reach or just so far out of sight, you know, how do we know what we want to do? Because we've never seen it.
Right.
How are we supposed to know? So that's part of the system. You know, and somebody told me recently, and I don't agree at all. Obviously, this is why I'm talking about it. Told me that I need to let the system off the hook. And I looked, okay, period. I looked at the message and I put the phone down. I couldn't even reply. I couldn't even reply. I'm not going to let the system off the hook. I think it's more productive to become the system, right, so that there are generations after us who have this accessibility and they make well-informed choices and they are able to fly further than we ever have because of the opportunities, because of the financial leveling. You know, it's wild. So I think if I could just talk about those two things, you know, that could be another hour. But those structures are really old school structures that don't include us, in my opinion. They just don't include us. I cannot, in good faith, ask my mother to do another thing for me. She has already done more than enough for me. Mm-hmm. Sending me to school, paying for school my whole life, you know, allowing me to stay at home, you know, rent free because I didn't have it, you know, giving me, you know, paying for some of my music lessons post undergrad, giving me money to, you know, do some traveling for auditions and things of that nature. I don't feel good about asking my mother for another dime. She's already gone above and beyond, you know, and of course I do what I can for myself, but it's really expensive to maintain. And you have to get creative about how you do so. And I just see why a lot of people quit. And I see why a lot of people, I don't even want to say quit. A lot of people don't quit, but they change course. You know, you see a lot of classical singers who turn to coaches, or they turn to professors. They go get a doctorate and become a professor. Or, you know, they may pick up, you know, an entrepreneurial thing. You know, they might be a real estate agent, or, you know, they may switch gears and become some sort of healthcare professional. I see why people change course, because you get tired of climbing uphill all the time against the tide. You get sick of that, you know, and eventually you feel like you're going to drown, and it's just worse for us.
You touched on everything that honestly what I'm going through, because I feel like you and
Mm,
our lives are almost direct reflections, honestly,
mm, mm-hmm,
because I'm still with my mother because of course before the coronavirus hit, I was working two part-time jobs.
mm-hmm,
I'm running two small businesses, this business and then a web designing business that I'm trying to push
mm,
up off the ground. And on top, just all of that, just trying to put together so that way I can not only have the availability for my art,
right.
but also have something that I can claim for myself instead of constantly going to a 9 to 5 job that is trying to make me work 40 plus hours and not
Yep.
trying to acknowledge the fact that, aside from this job, I have my other job, which is acting, and that is my life career,
Hello.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, my mother is she has been so incredibly supportive for me. She told me from the moment that I graduated high school, because she knew that I was going to get into something artistic. She knew, she had an idea but not fully understand what it was. But she said, always told me, you always have your plan B.
Mm.
And I was going to school for engineering, but then once I
Wow.
yeah, I was going to school for engineering until I hit calculus and I was like, nope.
Right. Okay. Say less.
So then I
Whew.
became a pharmacy technician and I did that for
Okay.
several years until I realized, it's just, it's just not, it's not making any room for me to do my artistic career the way that I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
my mother and I spoke about it, and my mother still supports me financially a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But even during this virus, I still have a one of my part-time jobs. My other one got completely closed out because of the virus.
Wow. Mm.
But my other part-time job, I'm able to do that from home, which is honestly a godsend. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a little bit of money that I can actually, put into like my artistic career and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's such little money that I can't really do what I want to do with it. So
Mm-hmm.
I get in touch with my other fellow actors, like one of my fellow actor friends, Liz Gray. She's a vocal coach herself, and she and I made this trade where I will make her a website for her if
Mm-hmm.
she'll teach me to sing. And I can
Yeah,
sing,
that's
but
perfect.
I can sing, but I have my pitchy moments. And she's also going to teach me how to read music because I don't know how to read music.
Okay.
So, and that's where you have, like what you were saying, you got to be creative so you can get
Mm-hmm.
those opportunities, so you can get those moments to constantly perfect your craft. Yeah. And
It's crazy, isn't it?
mhm, it really
Like, it's wild.
it really is. And it's, I don't regret it at all.
Yep. That's the thing. Yep.
I don't
Yep.
regret it at all. I think that this was the best decision that I honestly could have made for myself. And like you were talking about math and science, I love math and science. I am a huge science nerd. I love chemistry. That was part of the reason
Ooh.
why I got into being a pharmacy technician, because I loved learning about medicine and what it does for the body. When I
Mm-hmm.
was a child, I said from the beginning that I wanted to be a doctor, but then once the sight of blood came into my view, I was like, nope. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I had to make a decision for myself. Do I love medicine more or do I love my art more?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the resounding answer was art.
Mm-hmm.
It was art.
And that's that way for a lot of us. So I am the furthest math and science person I could ever be. Like when I tell you, I am so arts and humanities. Now I love like reading. I don't read as much with, the amount of time that I have, but I do love to read anything like geography or social studies or sociology. Boy, I can talk in circles around that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
But it was always like, what am I supposed to do with life? Like if I'm not like doing music, the rest of the stuff, this is cute. But I could see me getting super exhausted from that in such a short amount of time. Like, and not a physical exhaustion. It's an emotional and spiritual exhaustion. when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing from a divine standpoint, I don't care what you believe in, if you believe in anything, everybody has a purpose. When you are not in your purpose, regardless of the degree of which you're in your purpose, when you're not there, you're tired, you're cranky, you're crabby, you may even be ill. You just got issues. You're no fun to be around. It's like you're just a sore, an eyesore. You are a literal eyesore. And when you begin to walk in your purpose and live in that and find your passion, there's just a glow about people who are there. Yeah. There's just a peace about people who are there. And so I completely 5,000% understand what you're saying. For me, it was more so, people say focus, or have a plan B. But to me, if you have a plan B, you always gonna focus on plan B. Then what happened to plan A? Let me just put my efforts on plan A. You know what I mean? Like, and there can be multiple plan A's. You know what I'm saying? There are plan A's that can coexist. So for me, performance world has changed to, Corona tide. And there are a lot of virtual things, but then there are a lot of not things happening, like it's just quiet in some places. And for me, that was okay because this is the best opportunity. I was complaining about never having time. This was the best opportunity for me to get myself together. I have, taken better control over my health. I am taking more control over my health in relation to my voice. I am taking more control over my business. So, I'm overhauling everything that I've ever had and I'm trading it in for something new. I have more money to do that because I'm not constantly in the streets and then going to order tacos every time it's lunchtime, because that literally is what I was doing. I'm just in a better place. And because I am where I'm supposed to be, I can also focus on other ventures. Performances have slowed down / for me, I'm comfortable taking a bit of a break as long as I'm working on my own and with, learning on my own and studying on my own, which I am, on a regular basis. I could be doing more, but we're not going to guilt myself there. But it's also giving me an opportunity to focus on Calebria, the vocal instructor. And I realized that I love her too. She's fun. She's funny. She's motivating, and people happen to really think that she's meaningful with what she does. I'm intentional with what I do. And so I have, turned my focus to building my current students up and my studio. It's not about numbers. It's about quality for me, building them up and then taking on more people that I can, fit and building them up and revamping that brand as well. This has been the perfect time for that. And so Calebria, the teacher, coexists with Calebria, the artist, who coexists with Calebria, the wine taster, who coexists with Calebria, the what is it? What do I call myself? I am the classical version of Cardi B. Okay. The Cardi B of classical music. They all live together and that's cool. I say that and people fall out. They look at me and I'm like, yeah. I'm really outspoken. I say what I got to say. All my clothes are loud. I'm loud. I don't care. It is what it is. You're going to get this personality, period. It just is what it is. And, all of those brands and features and facets of me, they coexist. Why do I have to trade in one for the other? Why do I have to have a plan B when all of this is plan A? All of this is plan A. This is unapologetically who I am and what I have to offer. And I am committed to being the best at what I have to offer and to provide the best of what I have to offer. I'm glad you touched on, your work. There is a conversation that is ongoing in the classical singer community, and it may be going other places, but for sure in this community, about correlating careers and how if you have a day job, that doesn't make you any less of an artist.
Right.
Okay. I think that I might have hit a button. For those people who are listening, it doesn't make you any less of an artist. Just because you have to provide, listen, shout out to you. Just because some days you're tired when you get home from work and you choose to take that nap instead of go hit in the practice room or wherever for an hour, it doesn't make you any less of an artist. How many no's you receive in an email from rejection letters, it doesn't make you any less of an artist. We are all doing what we have to do. And many of us are just doing the best that we can. And your best is good enough. It's good enough. And those correlating careers bring the best artistry out of you. My day job, I work in sort of like parish administration.
Okay.
And my official title is I'm the Associate for Education and Community Engagement. And so it's a busy time, especially we're completely online, but I work with what it says I work with, education and community engagement. And there are so many skills that I have garnered from that position and other positions similar to that feed me as an artist and as an educator. They run alongside each other. This position, they value the arts. My supervisor, our lead rector, is a degreed musician. Our music director, I started that job because 5 years ago almost, I started as a staff singer there, and, I just have gotten completely interwoven into, the church culture, and they get it because they are artists as well. They get it. They just get it. I don't have to do a lot of explaining, there's accountability, but they get it. And there are so many skills that feed me there that transfer to my artistry, and my artistry has transferred over. I would consider that a correlating career because there are other passions and interests that people have. It's okay to be multi-passionate. And the world wants to tell you got to be good at one thing. You do need to be good at one thing, but you don't have to be tunnel visioned into one thing either.
Right.
And it's inhumane to expect that you're only going to put all your eggs in this one basket and be satisfied with that one basket. That basket could bust open, say you could lose the basket, could get graffitied on, trampled, you name it. A kid could rip it up, you name it. It's okay to have multiple baskets, but they got to feed each other.
Mm-hmm.
They got to feed each other. And so if you are an artist and you're working a day job and that day job isn't feeding you, leave that one and go find one that is. Right. Go figure it out. Yep. Until your artistry, if you so choose, because it is a choice, if you choose for your artistry to be the day job plus, you know what I'm saying? Like your artistry. But for a lot of us, we have to provide. And it is okay and it's normal to have a correlating career. This economy has once again changed so big. It's so drastic. Mm-hmm. It changed with the last Great Recession, especially here in Detroit. And back then, when that happened, it became more of a norm and a necessity, even though that's sad in another way. It became a norm for people to work multiple jobs or have a side hustle, whatever you want to call it. Now, it is like almost a standard for you to do something and something else. And even though, that can contribute to burnout and you want to be mindful of that and be careful of that because you want to save your all for what you want to do, but it's normal and it's okay to do other things and to like other things and to invest in other things. Like you're no less of an artist. You're still an artist. You're still probably damn good at it, but it's okay. We're all doing what we have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was at the beginning of this, I was thinking about how you were talking about when you were a kid and you'd take your Fisher-Price little recorder and stuff like that. I was thinking about how I said our lives seem to mirror a lot with each other. When I was in elementary school, I went to an all-white private Catholic school.
Oh, girl, I went to Catholic school. I went to urban Catholic school. We are living the same life.
Yep. And
wow,
my single mother paid for the school herself.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was in school, I remember distinctively in the first and second grade, the main teacher aide, she was Scottish. So she had that really deep Scottish accent. And, and it was one day where I was just singing, and I can't remember where she heard me singing, but she created her own little tour of me, taking me to all the different classes in the school, and I was singing opera. What I thought was opera.
At that age, because our first experience is always imitation.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. I'm telling you, I think we actually might be like soul partners. I think we have similar journeys, that of course have different branches, but they're of the same tree.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so cool. You know what? No, I am not.
Okay.
But this is what's so crazy. I am a Scorpio, everybody, and I'm so into zodiac. And Taurus is the exact opposite. That is the counter on the wheel, on the zodiac wheel. And so either we get along very well or we're like killing each other, right? But most Taurus people are wonderful friends. I don't know if I would date one again. Help me, Lord. But they are wonderful friends. They're loyal. They're consistent. What you see is what you get. I'm not always consistent. I can be so emotionally erratic. It's not even funny. Like, I'm doing better now that I'm in therapy, praise the Lord. But, Scorpios, we're emotional people. And Tauruses are, just what you see is what you get. They're hard workers. When they commit, they are in it for the long haul. And that's a beautiful skill, So that is so funky that you say that. I'm so in the zodiac, y'all. Like, when I tell y'all, my mom, like, she rolls her eyes at me and I'm like, girl, this stuff is real,
So I want to talk to you about some of the shows that you have done.
Okay.
Particularly, and I know I'm going to butcher the mess out of this title.
It's okay.
Pomme d'Api?
Pomme d'Api. That just means little apple.
Okay.
It's French. So that was fun.
Yeah, it looked like it was really fun. I was looking at the video on your website and this goes back to what you were saying before, where you may not know what you're saying, but you can see it through your work, the physicality of it. From what I gathered, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked like you were playing the mistress maid or the girlfriend to the man of the house.
Very close.
But then you started having some kind of romantic relationship with the butler, who was the other woman that was in the show. That's what it looked like.
So here we go. I'll break that down to you in the quickest way I can. So the main character, Catherine, is a maid. She comes from a lower class setting. And so she was dating the nephew, who is the young lady. Her name is Isabel Springer. She plays a man that was a pants bra. It's my boo. I love her. And the nephew, who is played by Isabel, lives with a wealthy uncle, who is my other friend, Tyler. I love him as well. And the uncle tells the nephew, you can't date her no more. She ain't it. And so the nephew doesn't have a spine, and so breaks up with Catherine, and she is pissed about it, honey. So she cooks up this plan to come back in disguise to be a maid to that house, disguised so that the uncle doesn't know who she is. And she goes to try to make her former lover, the nephew, Gustave, jealous by constantly flirting with the uncle. And the whole time, like, this is just like Gustave's heart ripping out, like, oh my God, And at the end, it is revealed who she is, and the uncle just gives them his blessing. So it's a comedy. And
clearly
that was when I was in France. It was a good time. It was a good time. Y'all, playing a hot maid, that's me all day, right? It was a hot girl summer that summer, for real. It was just, the French was fun. French is probably my favorite language to sing in. That was my first foreign language in life as well, too. And just hearing people speak it, like on the street, is so beautiful. And the music is really comical. In addition to, for once, I play a woman and a soprano plays a man. Usually it's the other way around, where I would play, the male character, and then the soprano would be like the leading lady. And I'm like, oh, they done flipped the script. It was just such a good time. And so there was a scene that I sent you, and she was drunk. Catherine was drunk. And she goes on talking, and, they gave us this little dance bit. I can't tell you how out of breath I was after that, because she ain't no dancer.
I saw that. I was like, this is hilarious.
I mean, I was like, what? And, the whole time she's talking about, she's drunk, and she's like, listen, I could have this kind of man. I could have that kind of man. I could have a farmer. I could have a businessman. I could have, like a government official. I can do whatever I want to do. I'm that girl, like, period. I do what I want to do because I want to do. And those men are kind of sick about it. It's like, oh my God, why is she so brazen? But her character is so fun, and it's in your face, and it's all driven. Actually, even though it's a comedy, it's driven by pain. Rejection is pain. Nobody likes to be rejected.
Right.
But, pain can manifest into Some people laugh pain off and they still hurting. Some people are pissed and they manipulate, which is her character. Some people are sad and cry. She wasn't no crier, but that was just a good time. That was a good time. And a couple of times in those scenes, I got to drop it low on stage. So I was like, this is me, period. Period.
And I was watching it too, and I was just like, oh, this looks like this was really fun. I would actually like to see if Opera Moto does that, because I've seen a couple of productions of Opera Moto.
Oh, perfect. So you're familiar.
Oh, yeah. I actually got in touch with Danielle because Danielle was, she put the word out about looking for Black women to...
Oh, yeah. Stage manager and directors. Yep.
Yeah. So just waiting to hear about that to see what's going on with that. But yeah, I've spoken to Danielle briefly a couple times regarding the show, because I actually inquired to her about, like, do you have to be like a professional opera singer to do it?
No.
I mean, I can make
you have to have a vision.
Right. I can make all those hooting noises as much as anybody else on stage.
She said hooting noises, okay? Hooting noises.
But yeah, I when I first found out about Opera Moto, I thought that it was really cool to have something that was outside of the Detroit Opera House or the Grand River or Grand Rapids Opera House. Something that is like Detroit Repertory Theater, or that's something like Detroit Public Theater or
right.
Tipping Point, something like that, something that's an actual theater company outside of the major theater opera houses. So I thought that was really cool that they created something like that.
And they're a good time. Working with them is a good time. They reimagine a lot of these roles and a lot of these sets, and they make them relevant and fun. This whole thing is about fun. At the end of the day, this is fun. It's somebody's job, but why can't work be fun, right? And so when we have fun, the audience has fun as well. And so they do such an excellent job of reimagining those things, and they see, the people in those roles, and the music is still wonderful and the singing is still great too. So none of that is compromised. And of course, it's a big bonus that they are investing in the local Detroit talent. There's so many classical singers in this Tri-County area. So many. And I haven't even met all of them. And there are so many. Like you kind of would be shocked to know. And there are so many of color as well, and probably wouldn't think about that. But I just appreciate that they invest and nurture the talent here, and young talent, because it's necessary.
Yeah, it really is. So how do you keep your mental health in check and keep yourself performance ready?
I see a counselor. I have been seeing my therapist, and I see the lead therapist, and I was seeing her at least now, this may be about a year and a half that I've been seeing her consistently. And I would say I go twice a month, but during the Rona time, because it was just so much change, I started going weekly. And now I feel like I can go back to going, every other week and be okay. But that is, to me, the pinnacle way that I keep it in check. I need a professional. I'm super sensitive about everything. I can catastrophically project like nobody's business. Sometimes I get offended over things that I shouldn't even be offended about, right? And then I take it personal. That's the Scorpio and Virgo in me, right? And I need a sounding board to affirm how I feel and let me know that it is valid and valuable, but also to restructure my sight on how I interpret things, because a lot of things are not personal. And so to me, going to therapy has really helped with that. And then it has trickled down into other parts of my life. Most of my closest friends that I talk to on a regular basis, we all in therapy. We are not at the same place, but we're all in therapy. When I know I'm having issues and I just need somebody to listen to me or, have input, I can call them, and they're great. They're dependable. They're fun. They also affirm who I am, and what I'm thinking or feeling. And so I have a really supportive social circle. And I'm the queen of taking time for myself. I don't believe in working so hard that I can't enjoy anything. So, I love to have wine. I will Netflix and chill all day by myself, not answer the phone. I do love to go out. I'm an extrovert, as you probably can tell, but I love to go out and have like brunch with people. But I'm right now I'm not doing indoor restaurants. So, I may go get takeout and sit at a park and eat, or with somebody, or by myself. I'll go get a pedicure, something like that, something that I enjoy. Fitness is like a newer portion of my life now. So I feel better when I'm in better shape and when I feel like I have control over what I'm putting in my body. So those are things that help me feel good about me. And when I feel good about me, everything I do is successful.
I need to follow your lead.
Come on. This is a path for everyone. This is for everyone. Wellness is for everyone. It's not exclusive.
Right.
Wellness is for everyone. Peace of mind is for everyone. And I'm always happy to talk to people, if they reach out and kind of ask me for referrals of where they can go for certain services or places. I'm not stingy. This is not just for me. Feel free. I'll tell you what worked for me. I could tell you some of my pitfalls. I'm mostly an open book. This is for everyone. We're all just trying to do the best that we can do. And we have to support each other in that.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. So what would you say is your greatest accomplishment in your career so far?
Whoa. That is a question. Wow. So I don't know if I would say a greatest accomplishment for myself as far as like a career track, because I don't know. I think I'm still looking to ascend, but I am proud of where I am right now. And this may sound a little like deep, and it's not really based on like metrics or anything. I am really, really proud of myself for sticking the course, especially this past year. I'm really happy that I found the motivation to get up and audition a few times. I'm really happy that I'm sticking to education and being that student, that lifelong student and that lifelong learner that I talked about. I'm consistent with that even during this, COVID time, because this gave me such anxiety, and depression, not being able to see anybody off top, that I was just kind of just eating everything in front of the TV for like 6 weeks. And then I said, okay, I got to stop. I got to try to put a can on this while I can. And, it forced me to look at new music. It forced me to continue taking lessons online. It forced me to, again, reimagine my brand and do things like that. I'm really proud of that. And so whereas that may not be a metric, and it may not be, the best role of my career that I've ever sung, but to me, that has so much weight and so much depth that to me, if I never sing another role and I never do another recital, I know what I've accomplished because of where I am in the space that I'm in. So to me, that has to be the biggest accomplishment for me, because a lot of people have roles galore on their resume and their mind is gone. Their peace of mind is gone.
Yeah.
They are struggling. They're empty. And I feel really full. And I'm just so happy that I have gotten to that place, even though I have days, but on a consistent basis, I just feel so full and energized and motivated to continue.
I can definitely relate to that. I almost, when I decided to not be a pharmacy technician anymore, I kind of felt empty at first. But then once I really started diving into my organization, BLAQN, a little bit more, really trying to work out the kinks of what my organization really stood for, getting the opportunity to, with one of my part-time jobs, being able to work with kids, because I was an after-school teacher, and then working in theater administration, so being a part of the ins and outs of what's operating in a theater. Little bit by little bit, things started having a place and being put in that place.
Absolutely.
And it really started keying in for me that, while I may love pharmacy, I may love the aspect of medicine and stuff like that, it wasn't fulfilling me at all.
Yep. It was just taking up space.
Yep. It was taking up too much space. So I would say for myself that I'm content where I'm at right now, but I would definitely like more for myself.
Right. And that's an artist thing too.
Yeah.
It's never enough, which is okay. Which is okay because it pushes you to expand and to create new opportunities and to it puts you in a position to receive those opportunities as well. And that's okay. You know, as long as it's within healthy boundaries of yourself, then why not? Like, it's never enough. Now, when I said if I never get another role, now hold on, I didn't mean it like, oh, I ain't got to get another role. You know what I'm saying? Like, I anticipate being full throttle once, you know, things kind of resume to whatever the new normal is now. But as of now, this was just a great opportunity to check in with myself. And by doing that, I'm like, you know, I've actually covered a lot of ground. I started seriously singing classical music when I was 25. I'm 30 now. That's only 5 years. There are people that have been doing that twice as long and even more than I have. And because of my work ethic, I've covered more ground in 5 years than I could have ever given myself credit for. So I have to stop and say, dog, that was good. All while, you know what I'm saying, battling depression, all while working a million jobs, all while, you know what I'm saying, in some spots of my life being relatively unhealthy. Like, that's actually a big feat. And so I have to stop and look and say, this is cool, and smell the roses. And I know, you know, that there's an after, because that's just how we are, and we're wired that way as artists. But, you know, I'm just content. That's the right word. You said content. Content is the word.
So this is my final question for you.
Okay.
And I ask all of my guests this. It's called the Queen's Request.
All right.
And
I like it already.
And I would like for you to suggest to me 1 or 2 Michigan Black women artists, whether if it's opera or dance or pole dancing, whatever, that you think we should keep an eye out for.
I know so many. So I'm going to go and preface that by saying, if your name doesn't float out of my mouth, charge it to my head and not my heart. Because I want to put everybody on, right? So I'm going to pick 2 people. I have a wonderful friend. Her stage name, I believe she has gone with Lana Michelle. Okay. And she is a singer. She's like a contemporary singer. She's a writer as well. And she is so sharp. She's very sharp. Her music to me is written very well and is sung very well. And she has such wisdom beyond her given space and time and opportunity, you know. She's super smart. And I think she's going to be such a trailblazer in that realm. So I'll start there. And then my number 2, let's see. I am out here. Now I think that pole dancing is cool.
Well, I mean, it can be any genre.
I'm partial to it because it's fun, right?
Okay.
I think it may be a good investment to look into Portia Lane of Studio 88. Okay. She has her own pole dancing studio, and she is the lead instructor and owner, but I believe she may do some dance as well. And she's really cool. She's maybe just a hair older than I am, just a hair. And she's accomplished a lot through her ownership of the studio. So I think that she may be someone good to talk to as far as experience and opportunity and background and so on and so forth. So yeah, there's so many people out there. I probably should have made a list before I got on here. You know how that goes. People ask you how old you are and you forget on site. Yeah, that was like that. I lie all the time by accident.
Well, I like to keep these questions where, you know, the folks don't know what I'm going to ask ahead of time, but I do.
That's great.
Yeah, I do try to make sure that I don't ask any like offensive questions or anything like that. But I definitely like to make the Queen's Request the last one, because it really gives people that chance to really think like, who do I know? You know, so
right. I understand that. I understand, and it widens our network, right. As well.
So is there anything that you want to promote, like any social media handles, your website?
So I am overhauling everything. And so it's going to be a fresh start, but I will drop. I am on the socials, and I'm going under a new handle. If you get to the page, Don't be alarmed because it's a little blank right now. But on Instagram, you can follow me at Muva Mezzo. So MUVAMEZZO. Muva, because that's what they say on the East Coast. And I have so many friends from the East Coast and they say crazy stuff like that. And then I pick it up and bring it back to Detroit. People are like, what? What are you saying? So it's going to be Muva Mezzo. CalebriaWebb.com is going to get an overhaul. You can feel free to check it out and drop me a line or anything. If you have any questions, you want to get in contact, sure, it's functional, but it's going to look totally different over the next couple of months. Yeah, other than that, I mean, I'm here. I am on social media a lot, so feel free.
Okay.
A lot. Way too much.
I hear you on that, but honestly, I can't even help that because I have to be on social media.
You have to be. Yep.
For my businesses. If it was left up to me, I wouldn't even be bothered with people, honestly.
I hear you. I hear you because you get tired.
Right.
Personal time is valuable.
Right. I enjoyed this conversation with you. I enjoyed this. You are just too much fun. I enjoyed this so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having this platform, sustaining this platform. This is so powerful and creative. And it's just so meaningful, necessary, all of the adjectives, all of the words, especially in the time that we're in. It's so cool. And I'm just honored that you even reached out to me. This was such a good time. Such a good time.
Yeah, I had a 4-part mini series discussing the racism in Michigan theater. And I gathered a whole bunch of Black actor friends of mine, and we talked about the experiences that we've been through, and it was, oof, man.
I know. I already know.
People were not ready.
No, it gets deep real fast, real fast.
And one of my friends, his name is Dan Johnson. He's really been working like extremely closely with me on this project. And he actually prepared a 11 page essay about how theaters in Michigan can change to an anti-racist community. And it's beautiful. It's ridiculously insightful. I tell him how much I appreciate him for creating that because that wouldn't have come out of me. So
right. There's something for everybody, right? And that is a gift.
Yep. But yeah, I'm so glad that we got the chance to talk. We're gonna definitely stay connected.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Like so many great things have been born from this opportunity.
Yes. Thank you again.
No problem. Thank you. And y'all better subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already, okay? That was that.
I appreciate it.
Love you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. You can find Black Queens on Stage podcast and Black Literature and Art Queens Network at blackqueensonstage.com and blaqn.org. Follow me on Instagram at BLAQN Show Michigan, on Facebook at BLAQ Show Michigan, and on Twitter at BLAQNMI. You can find all this info in the show notes. Please rate the show and leave a review on Apple Podcast or on Podbean to let me know what you think of the show. Thanks again. Until next time.